We've reached a point where technology has gone from progressing as the result of the inertia from each push forward we make to becoming a self-propelled object that not only has speed but also acceleration. As such, the body of things that are possible relative to what has been put into application is becoming frighteningly large. How can we mitigate the risk of things possible but not yet imagined when there are so many of them? Again, it's like Ghostbusters. Might as well get ready for the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, because if you can imagine it, it can probably be done. We can see now with warfare between state actors the testing of the bounds of this in the business of death and destruction. Just what's possible. If you've lived long enough, you know that human beings can be counted on to do the wrong thing for gain or to satisfy a compulsion when nobody's looking. And it's consistent. My father used to be what they call a 30-day man. He worked for a company that had units all up and down the East Coast. When there was an accounting irregularity that pointed to theft, they sent him to uncover it, fire the manager, who is always the culprit, and then hire and train a new one. Move on to the next location. He told me that in every case it was a manager who simply didn't have somebody looking over their shoulder. In my profession, I also have occasion to see the aftermath of embezzlement, and again, its failure to segregate duties. Not all people will steal from you when nobody's looking, but there's enough of them that it's a certainty with a sufficient sample size of people in positions of trust. There are thieves among us. But thievery is just one kind of harm. The same applies to every kind of harm in scale, including people groups, organizations, and governments. It's just a question of whether or not they have the power to do it and can get away with it, or at least pay a cost that's less than what was gained in the endeavor. When checks and balances are lacking, human beings will game things in their favor in just about any arena and in just about any way. They do it as individuals and as groups, such as gangs, cronies, clans, cults, in any way that people associate to the exclusion of others. The promise of technology to some is the ability to exploit, to eat up every little bit of value, get every crumb of consumer surplus under the demand curve, to price discriminate and hit every single point along the way, or better yet, have monopoly power to price it however they want and make the client do as much of the work as possible. If the taking doesn't have to happen by subtle means, then it'll be done by force. Another way to exploit is in the context of playing with money through fractional reserve banking and derivatives, essentially rehypothecation of real things represented by paper, and then controlling the price by artificially manipulating the quantity available to absorb demand pressure. You can suppress the price of a good by flooding the market with many more paper representations of it than exist. Captains of capital can play with the prices and make money by doing nothing but buying and selling. For this same reason, you'll notice that certain organizations always want to fix a problem by creating yet another market that they can exploit in this very same way. It's just their game. It's the game they're good at and the one they like to play, and they want to create more opportunities to do it. Like the whole carbon credit cap and trade thing. It's not that the existence of markets is evil, just that the disconnection between the real quantity of a thing and the supply that's represented as being available for purchase is a kind of lying that creates an opportunity for market makers to steer wealth to themselves and away from the producers of the real good, the price of which they suppress. The whole money supply can be manipulated towards many different ends, be they material or social. A famous banker who I don't feel like looking up said, "Give me control of the money and I care not who makes the laws." You can steal more than the people's wealth through monetary expansion. You can demoralize a people by debasing their currency. It's a process that causes them to monetize everything, including their bodies and souls. Another way that people exploit each other is through institutional and media conditioning. The streets are full of lab-grown worldviews held by people so strongly identified with them and their flesh that some would kill you for disagreeing if they could get away with it. People are running software in their heads that's making them do things that go against their own interests. And maybe they know it, but they think there's a kind of merit, the penance of living in either a dystopic or Hobbesian state, or simply one in which they don't exist, for having been killed in intertribal conflict. Like if you have a kid and you wouldn't want to see them doing the thing that you're about to do, then don't do it. Or if that thing you support leads to a discordian society, don't do it. But some people are so far gone that they would sacrifice their own children to virtue signal their allegiance to some narrative they hold sacred, in the same way that the greatest generation loved Uncle Sam, motherhood, and apple pie, as Barry Manilow put it. There's an entire planet full of people suffering. They suffer various injustices and deprivations, but only certain subsets of those victims are afforded a set of conditioned advocates, people who are literally brainwashed to care about a subset of people over anyone else. It's not that those particular victims are special. It's just that they are in sensitive places or aligned against people that the programmers want to destroy. There's so many examples of this that I don't have to be talking about any particular situation. People kill, steal, and manipulate, and it's really just a matter of capability and opportunity. And when there's a technological inflection point, you have both, because if there's a wide gap between reality and possibility, then there's a whole field of opportunities to exploit edges against those who can't even conceive what you've discovered, and therefore what you might do to them with this as yet unknown thing. I'm not talking about individuals working in their garages. I'm talking about governments, companies, NGOs, religious groups, cults. And the technology is inventing itself at this point, like AI. If you can imagine it, it can very easily be done. Like, for example, something that I call Judgment Day. You may have seen where a major retailer has been running a rope-a-dope against shoplifters. Like, they let them steal up to the point where it crosses into felony territory, and then they press charges all at once. Like, they sandbag it all up on them and then lay it down at once. Well, I'm not saying this is going to happen, because I firmly believe that the surveillance technology and computing power to build a case against a human being will be used to enforce power and ideological purity, and not as any kind of measure that would, God forbid, make us safer or return us to a high-trust society. But just consider that the following scenario is actually possible now. If you think about it, so much is filmed and tracked now. If you could feed all of that into one system, which I'm sure they're doing, you could have more than a social credit score. You could really know who is committing crime, all of it. You could essentially build dossiers on everyone in the population, which I've heard already exists. But the technology's available now to really know who's doing what in terms of crime. So one day you have America, like it is right now, this live-action game of Grand Theft Auto that's going on around me in this city of 1 million people in which I live, where if somebody hits my car, they're probably going to run because they can't afford to have any interaction with the law for various reasons, where people you know get mugged and people you know die of fent, where predators prey on children. You have that one day. And then the next day is Judgment Day. And that is the day when everyone who is deemed to be a net negative to society by virtue of the dossier that AI has crafted on them, like people who have an established pattern of violating others, they're just removed en masse and either put in some kind of prison system or an escape from New York type environment, or worse. Think of the kind of robots and drones that could be invented, especially with the advent of a battery that will charge in 30 minutes, run a car for 600 miles, and could be recharged 1,000 times. You could have like a robot army. We could have drones that will carry people along some pre-programmed parabola, like a whole transportation system. We could have humanoid robots doing everything, and better than humans, like with multiple legs and joints that go both ways. We could have home security systems that have like drones and like a Roomba-like thing, but with like an ankle cuff that can, have a stun gun in it or something. We could have, and probably do already have, tiny little drones like the ones used to assassinate people in Dune. So yeah, technology can be used now to more efficiently enforce whatever it is you want to enforce or force on people. The rhyme scheme of history is such that we are entering an age of technologically facilitated coercion. See, we already have a world of coercion. It's just that technology is going to be leveraged for that purpose. I keep hearing stories from Europe about the granularity of control being exercised on the population over behavior and ideas, thought crimes. There's at least one person doing 10 years in Germany for making music. I don't have to defend the music to have, to see as aberrant a government that would imprison someone for making forbidden art. The most frightening thing is how many people think this is acceptable. That kind of power can be turned against anybody, so it should be no consolation that it's being turned on people with whom you disagree. That's a temporary state of affairs, as history shows. I think the best you can do is opt out everywhere you can. Try to recognize where the slaughterhouse doors are, where the skinny end of the wedge is. You need something of an OODA loop to recognize when coercion is being introduced into your world. The will to coerce is already there and has been expressed. You saw people getting their accounts frozen up north for supporting the wrong causes, and how people have been debanked for similar. We need a new Bill of Rights, one that protects us from technology. It's not a joke. You may notice if you look back in history that laws that take away our freedoms or our privacy, they just get put on the books and they never seem to go away. These chains that get put on one generation that are just already there for subsequent ones who never get a say, these things all need expiration dates that require renewal by a plebiscite. And for God's sake, we need to get the money out of politics.